Hello! I'm going to be teaching you how to change your hawk oil like a pro. The things you're going to need are something to catch the oil in, something to clean your mess up with, 1 quart or maybe 2 quarts of your preferred motorcycle oil. I'm not going to get into it now why I'm using this because that's a whole nother can of worms. I'll make an entire another video on it. But just your preferred motorcycle oil. You're going to need some isopropyl alcohol, amazingly, because the Hawk 250 doesn't come with an oil filter. Just like the Honda Rebel, it uses an oil screen, or like a chainsaw, it uses an oil screen, which I just think is the coolest thing ever. You're going to need this 17mm socket. You're going to need a way of getting your oil in there, so I'm using this hyper tough funnel. And you're also going to need a 24mm socket to take the oil screen bolt off. The oil screen bolt is this really big bolt at the bottom of the motor. I actually don't have a socket that goes as high as 24mm, so I'm just going to use a 24mm wrench and a torque wrench if you prefer to use it. I mean, really, it just needs to be tight, but because the crankcase is married right in the middle where this drain plug is, to strip this thing is an immediate engine rebuild if you can't retap it or something. So I like to torque mine a little bit under specs. The owner's manual says 18 foot-pounds. I like to torque it a little bit underneath. It's completely fine if you do, just enough to make sure that it doesn't come out. So a widely debated distinction in the owner's manual is this 1.6 US quarts. A lot of people argue and complain and say that this can cause an overfill. This is why I say that your sight gauge is pretty much your best friend, because so long as you're at least halfway or just a tiny bit above halfway in that sight gauge, then you're perfectly fine. So just as a precautionary measure, I'm having my lovely assistant hold the bike level for me, and I'm going to mark with a dry erase marker where the oil was at before I drain it. Take your oil fill cavity right here, pull that off so there's displacement. Alright, so take your 17mm socket and place it underneath the motorcycle where the drain bolt is. And you're going to want to turn it this way towards the front tire when you're sitting on the left side of the bike. Turning it this way will tighten it. You don't want to do that. Take the rest of the threads out by hand. Oil should start draining. Sometimes it helps to rock your bike back and forth just to make sure that you're getting all of the old oil out of all of the cavities in there. You can see the rate of flow slightly increases as I tilt the bike back and forth. That's because there's little bits of trapped oil in there. Crack the torque on your oil filter screen bolt. Now it should be held in with a spring, and a little bit of oil is going to come out, so don't worry. Just like, there we go. See, it pops out just like that, and then you got to fetch your screen. And there's your tiny little oil screen. So the packing on this is completely fine. This little gasket right here. You don't have to replace it. What you do want to be careful of, though, is you want this to face this way, and then when you're reinstalling it, make sure that the spring is putting positive pressure on it, just like this, and then thread it. The torque for this would be in the lower inch-pounds, so really you don't have to torque it, you just have to snug it. So we're using the isopropyl alcohol to clean this screen, and I'm going to pour some of it inside of this Bugs Bunny cup that I have, and you're going to dip that in there and use that to get all the yucky stuff. See all that? Get all of the yucky stuff out of your oil screen. I'm probably going to change this alcohol a few times because I actually wasn't expecting it to be that dirty. So take these 3 parts, just like this, your oil screen and your oil screen pushing spring, your threading cap. Okay, gently by hand. Thread it gently by hand until you can't thread it anymore. And then all you're going to want to do is take your 24mm, whether you choose to use a wrench or a socket, and all you're going to want to do is snug it down. It's just like the oil filter on your car or truck. Take your oil drain plug and make sure that it still has the crush washer on it. You want to clean these threads off, and you want to clean the threads off on the bottom of your drain plug threads that go to your motor, is because you want proper thread contact when you're going to torque it. Snug the bolt down real quick with your ratchet. The manual itself, I believe, says 18 foot-pounds. Now, in my opinion, that could lead to an over-torque. So I usually like to go somewhere in the middle. Since you've already snugged it down with your ratchet, take your torque wrench, and we're going to torque it to 168 inch-pound, 14 foot-pounds, basically. Looks good to me. Okay, so this is where all the magic happens. Now you're putting your oil in your bike. I've stolen this Pyrex measuring cup from my wife, and I'm going to use it to measure out a half a quart each time. Alright, so with my level on the bike, 1 quart is showing just about right here in the sight glass. Another 0.3 down the hatch. Alright, it looks like with our level being perfectly where it's supposed to be at, our sight gauge is reading pretty much perfect. So it looks like 1.3, 1.4 quarts is our magic lucky number. Then put your dipstick back in, and we're completely done. Stay tuned for an oil analysis video as to why I don't use some oils and why I use certain oils. I really hope this helped out. Take care.